I'm already getting flack for this. Okay, Artie, do your welcome and all that stuff.
Welcome, everybody, to the show. Welcome, Dan, and welcome to the legendary Mark Herman himself. Thanks, Mark, for coming.
Thanks for being on, Mark.
And putting up with Dan's nonsense.
Okay. I'm trying to clarify this because...
Well, give me an example. What is an example?
We weren't talking, so the question is, what is an intellectual game? Go.
Right.
I don't know.
Hold on. Okay, here.
We can work from examples here. Go ahead and give us an example.
Okay, well, Christopher, relax. For God's sakes. Okay, what I meant to say about this, I think what I meant to say is that games that involve more thought than just placing your machine gun there, yeah. Like politics, man. Geopolitics. Supply.
So,
Mark, help me here. Jesus Christ, don't leave me like this.
Do you mean games with a lot of different decisions or types of decisions to make?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of overlap in war games, right?
Yeah. Okay, Mark. This is biased on. It's going to be a biased question here, but a game like Pacific War, you're not just placing units and going and shellac them, right? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you're definitely not.
I think Artie's better. What do you think, Artie? You've been playing it, and you probably don't like it very much by now, but at least you've been playing it.
We have been pounding it for a couple of months now, and we're up to the Guadalcanal campaign scenario.
That's where you need to. That's where I usually spend my time.
Yeah, and well, we took our time with the battle and engagement scenarios, and we felt ready to tackle a campaign scenario at the point where we were at. So if you do not plan, and it's not necessarily that it's difficult to conduct the planning, but if you do not plan, all your shit will sink because it didn't have enough time to get back home to safe port. So yeah, you have to plan the operations out. You have to bid points to conduct the operations in the first place. You may need to have a reserve of points to pay for penalty time or to pay for submarines and things like that. So it's kind of important to have objectives. We are having a good time with that. I feel like we're struggling with the rule book a little bit, but maybe that's just because we spent too much time in the battle and engagement scenarios.
Let me ask a question. Two questions. First question is, are you enjoying the experience or the trip?
Yes.
Okay.
We're to the point where even if we don't get to it right now, because we have, like I said, we have been playing it for a couple of months now. I think I do feel like we could tackle the strategic scenario at some point.
Yeah, I've seen the kind of games you at least clip. I mean, and what you say you're playing. But if you could play OCS competently, you can play Pacific War competently. I think let me offer I'm making up something because I didn't create this topic, but I think what I would say is,
Mark, well, what about Churchill?
Hang on, that's not even a war game. But I think a game, an intelligent game, I just don't know that I understand that phrase generally, but maybe I would think about a multi-dimensional game. Maybe that's more like, the game that plays, where you're dealing with, politics and the war and logistics and planning and, more elements of war. Maybe that's more which tend to be more complex games. But I don't think that that's a fair comment because, I mean, one of the easiest games I could teach anybody is the game of Go. And as far as intelligent games goes, it's off the scale, right? So it's not a rules complexity issue. It's the play itself is very complex. Not so sometimes you can get there by a lot of rules, which is what, Pacific War or Empire of the Sun. Sometimes you can get there from, like the game of Go, which is also called Baduk in Korea, and it's called Weiqi in Chinese, but it's an old game, but it's got basically 2 rules and 1 exception, and that's the whole game. Now, play it well, good luck. But, you know, so I think that may be something to think about. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. Look, I wish I had you in my brain all the time so I could express myself as eloquently.
Oh, I cannot. I have me in my head all the time, and I don't even like it. So I don't know why you would like it.
Now, Mark,
it's getting weird.
Go as simple. It's like piano. Piano is simple, but it's complex, right? Whatever.
Well, I used to listen to these. Leonard Bernstein had a series on music. You know, this is Leonard Bernstein teaching music, and Kevin Zucker had the full set. We used to listen to it, and Leonard Bernstein said about the piano that it is all the instruments.
Now, it's chess. Would you consider chess? And when I say intelligent, I scratch that word.
Yeah.
But the chess, insight, moves ahead, like you have to think many moves ahead type thing. That's what I meant to say. That's what I meant to say. Now, in conjunction to chess, where you have to think ahead, there's psychology in it. Don't tell me there ain't no psychology in chess, man. You're damn right there is.
There's psychology in Pacific War too. The other guy doesn't know where the carriers are. He's got to guess.
Yeah, that's part of it, you know. But I guess what, again, we're struggling for, you know, what we're going to talk about. I think I'm just
for clarity.
But I think that you know, let me try something out, which is this lame, but like there are games that are going to be more. You said the word pre-planned, so there are going to be games where having the longer strategic view will pay off better than a game that's more transactional. Let's say, so a transactional game would be, you know, hold on to this building, right? So guys, you know, so all I got to do is sit in the building and roll good dice in like ASL or Combat Commander. I once played this scenario in Combat Commander where I think I was the French and these Germans were trying to take me out of this building, and I had these, you know, that was the game. I mean, I don't think I moved a piece in the game in that scenario more than one hex, you know. So very transactional, you know, hold the building, play cards well, and stop is one kind of game. It's not a better or worse game, but I want to be clear about that. But it's more transactional in its intent. And a game like chess where, you know, you're going to have to set up positions that have long range impacts on the game. Maybe more of that, you know, the horizon of planning changes, if that's what you're talking about.
So would you consider politics in a game the same thing as planning ahead?
Depends on how the game treats it. I mean, look at any like a lot of East Front games will have a Hitler gets stupid table, you know, whatever they call it. And you know that turn you roll the dice and it says Hitler says you can't retreat. Okay, you know Simon says you can't retreat this turn. Simon says you can pull back one hex. You know, that's transactional use of politics. But if it's a game where you're planning, you know, forward in politics, well, yeah, it could have. I'm imposing a arbitrary definition on this conversation. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm just trying to come up with something. If we're going to sit here and talk about it. What do you think, Artie?
Diplomacy is a game with, you know, what is it? Got 2 pages of rules or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Very simple.
It's death when I was a kid.
Yeah, and then, you know, the politics rule is okay. Now go negotiate. So you have to. Well, if you're not on the second diplomacy game, you will plan ahead, because if you didn't plan ahead in the first diplomacy game, you got a knife in the ass. So that is, you know, an example of if that's the definition we're using, you know, and there's like no rules support for that. The rule is basically then this is just negotiated by the players.
Well, the only rule in the game is only the written order counts.
Yeah,
that's the only rule in the game.
Mm-hmm. And there's a rule for how to write the orders, and that's the whole game. Yeah. So I mean, there's no like real guidelines as to what the there's lots of house rules and variants of diplomacy too that do put some limitations on the politics, but it's all politics and negotiation, right? And if you're not planning that ahead, you're going to be one. That's how tables get flipped and friendships end playing diplomacy, right?
Or you're not in the game long.
Well, that's true too.
Artie, what about Dune?
Dune is a little
Wait,
different. I mean, it's a.
What you talking about? The Avalon Hill one, the new one? What are you talking about?
I assume we're talking about the Avalon Hill one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So that's like quite a bit more complicated than diplomacy, but it's got the same kind of dynamic, right? And again, I think in the first time you play it, you're kind of just living the game and figuring it out. But the second time, you are going to end up doing some planning, some forward planning, and trying to figure out what the other players are trying to do, because you're going to.
And the ultimate planner is the Bene Gesserit, because they write down the winner in the turn, they win the game over anything else. So that's a lot of planning.
Yep, and if they picked it right, which is kind of a matter of luck.
I want to say that I wasn't in the game, but there was a game at J.R. Tracy's, before COVID, and they were playing Dune for a couple of nights, and I was playing like other stuff at the other end of the table, and the Bene Gesserit won. It was hysterical.
Oh, everybody will lose their minds when that
happens. But also the Bene Gesserit, the whole point of this. But let's talk about the Bene Gesserit and Dune for a moment, because I think it will add to this theme. So there's two ways to think about the Bene Gesserit. So if you don't know the game, it's Dune, the movie, and if you don't know the universe, I can't help you. It's too much to explain. But you're either the Fremen, or you're the Harkonnens, or the Emperor, or you're the Bene Gesserit and the Guild and all those kind of guys. And the Bene Gesserit have sort of like some special powers, but they don't have a lot of troops. They don't have any troops that I'm aware of. They have little sneaky shit they can do, but they have this one thing where, at the beginning of the game, they write down, Harkonnen win on turn 3, right? They write that down, and if the Harkonnen win on turn 3, the Bene Gesserit win the game, even if the Harkonnen won the game on turn 3. So the real thing about planning is, if you're the Bene Gesserit, how do you manipulate the game to make that happen? Mm-hmm. Or you're just randomly writing stuff down and you don't give a key. It's either transactional, like I'm just going to write this down and hope for the best, or you create the circumstances where you're subtly making that happen. That's what I think the game is trying to do from the theme of the game kind of thing, which is a hell of a lot of planning, right? Because you're manipulating the game to an end and an objective that nobody else knows but you.
It's so that game is that deep.
It is.
Oh,
it
it
can be. Oh, yeah. Again, depth. I got to be honest with you. I don't know many games that I've ever heard Artie talk about, or you talk about, or I play or design that doesn't have, they're not near if you had a 1 to 10 spectrum, 10 being the most of whatever we're talking about, which I'm not really sure. These are all above 5. There's no 3s in here. We're talking about 6s to 9s or 10s or something like that. So, these are all intelligent games. I'll give you an example. A game that's not an intelligent game, right? And the joke used to be, so it's like a game of, it's like a flick. There's a lot of games called flick games. Like you're taking some physical object and you're flicking it on a table to hit something. It could be race cars around a track, or it could be a high noon kind of thing where you hit the guy and you knock him out with a bullet, but it's always, you're flicking something. Those are not intelligent games. But as my friend Dan Dolan always says, it's the only game of skill at WBC. So all the other games have no skill required. This one has skill, physical skill is required to play a flick game well, but it's not an intelligent game for the very reason that it's a physical skill required to do it well. So there's at least the opposite of what we're talking about, I can hope to say.
Yeah, and I know, again, intelligent, it was just a word I used. I didn't know. Look, I'm not well read, okay? So that's what it is. Okay, and you know what, Mark?
Yes.
A deep game. That's what I meant, a deep game, a game that makes you think, pause, and reflect, and think ahead, like a chess game. Any Richard Berg games that come to mind?
Well, tell me what that isn't. Let's start with that.
Seriously, eh?
I mean, Berg did a couple of, what I'll call, he attempted near like the end of his career to do some kind of like, what do you call it? Lighter games, like Yuri kind of. He did. I have a copy of it downstairs, but it's a Roman game called Nero. He did a game called Nero.
I don't have that one.
Huh?
I don't have that one. I've got Dynasty, which is, I think, from the same basic period.
Dynasty is another good example. So again, not a game meant to like, bend the laws of physics kind of game. That might not fall into the highly, he would have said that, but like, any of his ACW games, or, the stuff that we did with GBOH, I mean, I would say that, like, if I think about like games with pre-planning, the GBOH games are probably more towards like the middle of this, they're a little bit more tactical games tend to be a little bit more transactional, so I'm going to launch this charge, and try to knock out that guy. But, those are like sixes on this kind of detail. Manchu, yeah, by the way, Manchu, that's like of the two favorite games that Berg did, Manchu is one of them. The other one is his medieval game, which he thought, by the way, just so you know, he said it was his best game. Now, do I agree with him? I think it's really one of his best games, but he felt it was his best design. That was, he told me that, obviously. And he certainly would not be shy about telling me what he thought. So.
Someone had mentioned Origins of World War II.
That's a Dunnigan design.
Yeah, it's a great Dunnigan design. I played it to death when I was in, I guess I was in high school when that came out, and we played it to death.
So
I haven't played it. I've got a copy.
You consider that a war game, right?
So it's a game of, and then you can tell it's it's actually got Nazi flags in it, which you can never do nowadays. But all that aside, you're placing, you're moving like flags into adjacent places and placing them, and then you're really rolling dice. Literally an odds table. I have 3 Nazi flags versus 1 French flag. It's 3-to-1 odds. I roll the dice, and I'm trying to gain political. It's like a war. It plays like a war game, only there's no troops. It's just political force, I guess you would call it. But it's a cool little game. I mean, and it's easy to teach, and we played it a lot, as kids. And then, but it was one of those games that you kind of burn out on. Like after you played it, you play it 20 times. Trust me, you've played it as many times as you need to play it.
Mark, question for you here. After the recent pictures of other galaxies, when are we getting a super deep space war game?
Play Redmond's Outreach if you want to play it.
That's the game that the biggest scope sci-fi game that I've got, or am even aware of, actually. Fantastic game, actually.
Mm-hmm. And Butterfield's got his Space Corp game, takes you like into the exploration of the outer galaxy and all that.
Have you played that?
Oh yeah, I like it. It's a very good game. In fact, I play tested with, John and I are good friends. I play tested last time I was at WBC, he and I play tested the expansion, which is called Space
Ventures.
Yeah. So I play tested a version of his expansion. It's a great game. Yeah. Great game.
I've played it too. I think it's very good. I played it solitaire, actually.
But going to your point, so what John was able to look, I am like a historian who designs games. So I can do a space game if it's like a licensed thing. So John's Space Corp game is based on his brother-in-law's books.
Right.
And so he's using, like, if I had a structure, if I have to first invent like a sci-fi structure, I guarantee, given that I have no experience with it, I'll do a lousy job. And people say, well, that's the stupidest, oh, hello, hey, Estonia, yay, NATO. But it's like when I did John Carter of Mars, I read 11 books, and I did a game on it. That was fine with me. I did a Conan game which never got published, but I read all the books. There's a lot of them, by the way. And so I had a game on Conan. But I was using most of them are written by Sprague de Camp, but it's not. But Robert Howard is the original creator is Robert Howard, and he only wrote really 3 books of short stories. One's like almost like a novella, but he only wrote 3 books. The other, 70 books is written by a guy named Sprague de Camp and some other writers are the majority of the genre. But Robert E. Howard, of course, started it.
For a long time, it was not even possible to obtain the original Robert E. Howard versions. It was all the Sprague de Camp edited stuff. You can now, but for a long time, it was not really possible to get that unless you track down old issues of Weird Tales or Gnome Press hardcovers or other crazy artifacts.
Yeah, there was a publisher. When I did the game, there was a publisher who had published three paperback books, which had all of that stuff collected mostly. And the one I still have is called Red Nails.
Yeah.
Which is more of a complete story. The other two are more short stories, but Red Nails is like a, you know, most of the book. It's like 2/3 of the book is one story, and it's got like a 2 or 3 other short stories from just to fill it out.
I had a couple of those, but I don't remember who the publisher was. I could picture the Frank Frazetta covers in my head, though.
Well, yeah, you know, I follow his daughter, and you know they're selling all of his art, you know, artwork on T-shirts and mugs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Frank Frazetta's artwork; is fantastic, you know. And of course,
that's obviously a T-shirt I'm gonna have to get.
You know, there was obvious reasons why I like Frank Frazetta artwork.
Hey, Mark. Since I have you on, I mean, for God's sakes, I can ask you a billion questions. That's amazing. War, Pacific War. Did you enjoy revisiting that, man?
Yes and no.
And my other question is, will you be revisiting any other games such as John Carter, or will you be bringing out a Conan game like that? You know.
Well, first off, only if somebody commissions me, because I don't have the, you know, I'll get sued, you know, so I'm not going to do that. As far as anything that I've done in the past, every time I've done a game from the past, somebody approached me and said, "Would you do that?" And then I think about it. So, you know, so Pacific War got done because Curt Schilling was a fan of it, and he reached out to me specifically for that. And then, of course, it went through a journey. But Curt Schilling was the one that started. I was never planning on republishing it. But, you know, COVID was probably a good thing because I had one thing. You know, I did a lot of things, but Pacific War like got me through COVID. You know, it's like, you know, I was inside, and you know, and the problem with Pacific War is not that it's just that it's got so many scenarios and so much. You know, it is a very, you know, it's an operational game that'll play out the whole war, which is kind of insane. And I was kind of developing the game that this 31-year-old had designed. So, you know, I don't like him very much, but other than that, I was developing this old young guy's game. And it was kind of, yes, Curt Schilling, yes. The founder of MMP. That's Curt Schilling. And by the way, I won a nice bet with a bunch of Boston Red Sox fans. I told them I had a signed contract from Curt Schilling, and they all bet me, you know, crazy shit. You don't, and I don't know why would anybody would bet me that I do or don't have something. I never tell a fib ever. I am famously like, I never make up a story at anything. So somebody says to me, "You don't have that." I go, "You're kidding. You're going to call me on that?" Okay, so here's the thing. I'll even give you odds because I got this. I was the dumbest goddamn bet, and I won the bet, but I didn't take the $10,000 I could have won from all these guys. I just said, you know, they were chagrined and impressed, so I took it. They bought me a drink. That was.
I guess they didn't know Curt Schilling.
I mean, why would anybody bet somebody like that? You know, given that you could get called on it, I mean, you look like an idiot.
And then have to welch on it because it's $10,000. Yeah.
Mark, the Pacific War.
Yes, sir.
Were you into COVID? Were we into COVID already? And was that one of the reasons why you wanted to revisit it, other than the Curt thing, or did COVID happen? COVID happen?
Let me tell you the story. So Curt Schilling reaches out to me now 13 years ago. I can look at the contract, and he wanted to republish Pacific War, and I said, and I my one condition is I'll do it if you personally sign the contract. So I kind of did it for an autograph from a Hall of Fame, you know, baseball player.
Right.
So I did the work, and then Curt, I'm not sure what happened, but Curt had this video studio and he got into trouble, and I think he must have gotten bought out or he left MMP or whatever it was. And Brian just wasn't his project. He wasn't interested. He was interested in doing more ASL and, you know, the next level up game, you know, and I don't blame him. That he sells that stuff like hotcakes, you know, and this was going to be a lot of work and a lot of parts. And so after a couple of years of like nothing happening after I'd done the work, I said, let's just call it a day. And he said, fine. And then I wasn't even going to do it. And then Nuts reached out to me and they said, you know, we'll give you lots of money if, you know, we get the game published. And I said, sure. So I continued the project. And then there was like a 3-year period of crickets. I kept writing and said, hey, what's going on? I mean, Olivier had done like artwork for it. I said, where's the development? What's the play testing going on? Nothing. Then after 3 years, I, through multiple people, I pinged on them saying, you got to send me an email because I don't know what's going on. And so they finally said, oh, we canceled the project. We thought you knew. I said, at that point, I would, I don't want to say what I was thinking, and I won't say it on air, but it was, none of it was kind. I'm going to be clear. And at that point, I called GMT. I said, Gene, do you want this game? Otherwise, it's never happening. He goes, no, I want it. So that was just before COVID. Like, think of it like.
Okay, hold on, Mark. Was there work? Did you already start working on it for you to say, hey?
I had finished all the design work back for Kurt Schilling. 11 years had gone by. I had rewritten the rules. I had redesigned it. All that stuff was done.
Holy shit! You could rewrite it again.
Well, no. You see, this is the part where you said, did I like doing it? Yes or no. The yes part was what I had already done. The no part is when you're developing a game. Already. How hard do you think it would be to develop that game by yourself?
God, with all those, I mean, a very large, very complex game with all those scenarios, I'd want a large team to help with development. Let me put it.
Yeah, were you the developer, Mark? The sole developer?
I look. There's a guy named Gary Gonzalez, who I've been friends with since 3rd grade. He's like one of my my oldest friends. And Gons was involved in the project. When I did the original Victory Games version. So I brought Gons in to help me out. And he was the official developer of the game ultimately. But, Gons is great at like, okay, Gons, here's 14,000 counters. Make sure all the numbers are right. And, he did a good job. I mean, and like I said, everybody moans about, you give them 20, what is it? 11 sheets. Well, 10 of them are really counters. So 10 sheets by, 240? Yeah, so 10 by 240 is 2,400.
It's a lot.
2,400 counters. I'm not counting the number markers. That's one sheet of number markers. So we don't count the number marker. We have 2,400 counters. Each counter has realistically 12 pieces, at least 10 pieces of distinct information you have to check. Front, because there's a front and a back. I think it's closer to 20, by the way. So you got 20 pieces of information per counter, 2,400 of them. It's a big number. And so you make a couple of mistakes and people freak the hell out.
I, for one, am outraged that these 2 pieces of errata are incorrect on these 2 counters.
I have the best comment I heard was from Lee Brimacon Wood, but I can never pronounce his name. Really
Lee
cool guy.
Wood.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And he goes to me, he says, listen, the customer is king, but I'm a Republican. That was the best line of all time.
Now, Mark,
yes.
I consider you an artist, okay?
Thank you.
Now, an artist doesn't revisit his own work. Why would you do that? It ain't the money. You're not going to do it for the money. Because if you're not interested, you're not going to do it, man.
Ridley Scott. How many different cuts of Blade Runner are there now? 6, 8?
Yeah, at least. I have them all. I love that movie.
It's a great movie, but
it's a great movie.
There's like literally the final cut, and then the final cut, and then the final cut.
Well,
it's like the kiss of final tours.
Is it safe to say that
35 years was between the first one, more than 35 years between the original and the one that was republished?
Right.
And I have to be honest with you, when I was playing, I still played it. Those 35 years, I was playing it. But the artwork was kind of dated, you'd have to say, and you got to understand something that a lot of people, who, quite frankly, have a lot of opinions, but actually don't know anything. They'll go, well, the counters are really small. So like for instance, if you're doing an Avalon Hill counter sheet with their die cutter, which was famous, there was that one that's a little big counter. They just never would redo the counter sheet, the die cutter. We had to have what they call large gutters. In other words, you didn't want the type getting too close to the edge. Otherwise, when they cut it, it was, you could have bad counters. The number would, the thing that drives people crazy, miscut counters. So we had to have huge gutters, which means you had maybe you had 1/3 of the counter couldn't be used for the counter. You had to have, in case it shifted left or right or up or down, it would still keep the numbers sort of, in the window. and they had to do that on front and back. So people go, the type's so small. There was no way to do it otherwise. Now, when you get the GMT and you got Chinese printers, all of a sudden, these guys are, the machinery is now, laser cut it or whatever the hell they're doing. It's much more precise. And so you get more room on the counter. And plus they made bigger counters at least for the ships. So, which has got the most numbers. So production is not an inconsequential thing, even in today's world. It's just a lot of stuff's easier. So again, I wanted new art. And I had modified the submarine rules substantially, which was really the biggest change of the game, which I really felt like I failed in the first version. The subs just didn't work the way I thought they could. It worked okay in playtesting, but in retrospect, it was the only thing that really missed for me on the game. Now, of course, I'm hearing everybody's going, "Oh, I don't like the way the subs work now. I want to make this change." I said, "Do whatever the hell you want." But so I want you to make an official change. I'm not making it. I am happy with the way it is. You do anything you want. It's your game. Be happy.
Use the old sub rules.
Okay.
Yeah, download them from the Board Game Geek if you want to.
Yeah.
We had the Canadians had a pianist called Glenn Gould. His first work was the Bach Goldberg variations, and his last work was the Bach Goldberg variations. Now, me, as I'm getting older, I like getting a little bit more stupid and simple. Mark, no, it's like you're getting more complex. Now, why are you getting more complex? Aren't you tired?
One, I'm not tired, but you see, I also did.
No, I know, yeah.
So the answer is, I haven't seen him in years, but I have an old friend named Doug Wiley, who's the president of Breakaway Games. Good guy. And people would say to him, Mark's last game was really complex. He goes, "Don't worry, the next one won't be." I kind of go both. I flip. Rebel Fury, which is what's getting the closest to going into production right now, is pretty straightforward Civil War battle game. It's probably one of the least complex ones out there. So I'm not wedded to complexity. Pacific War was Pacific War. I mean, I'm not going to make up bones, but
that's why I'm saying that.
Yeah, Empire of the Sun is my favorite title that I play a lot. It's certainly a deep game, however you want to look at it. I mean, I don't know. Artie, you talk about you play all those big complicated OCS and East Front games. What do you like?
Well, I mean, I like Empire of the Sun a great deal, for example, and you can kind of see. I don't know if you want to describe this evolution or not, but you can kind of see that even if they're not games by the same designer, that they're games that where the earlier game speaks through the latter game, right?
Totally correct.
There's a lot of the same underlying logic, but the scale is all magnified upwards. A lot of things are just kind of built into the game rather than you having to deal with them. I don't think it's a terribly complicated game, to be honest. A lot of people find it fairly challenging.
You're talking about Empires.
Empire of the Sun, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people find it very challenging to learn, but I don't think it's particularly difficult. I think if you have somebody teach you how to play, you could teach somebody how to play that in a couple of turns, and off they go. So, I mean, I'm finding that as I get older, and I've heard a lot of people say, I really used to like these complicated games when I was younger, and now I don't like that. I like simpler games now. And I think I'm kind of going in the same direction, but in the opposite way, where I'm kind of trying to, I'm really not going for simpler games, but I'm kind of trying to focus my efforts a little more on a smaller number of games so that I don't have 10 million different games in my head, which is why I lean into system games now, so I can just learn the system, play, whatever Napoleonic battle I want, for example.
Yeah, but let me ask you, how many boxes of games do you have ready to move?
About 45 right now.
There you go.
So they're not all war games. About 40 of them are, though. Then I'm not done, but there's probably another 10 boxes of war games.
I recently moved a lot of games from a summer house. They ended up there because when I sold my house, I know you're trying to get it. You're moving into a new house. Congratulations.
We're working on it.
Yeah. Well, the most miserable thing to do in life is move, especially when we have stuff.
This is the last time.
Yeah, I said that many times too.
Well.
But anyway, like when I left college, everything I owned fit in a satellite Sebring backseat and trunk. Everything I owned and the mattress was tied to the roof. You know, that's the only thing you couldn't fit in the car. That was a long time ago. So I had this. So when we sold our house, we had this summer house, and we were in an apartment in New York. And so I moved all of this stuff from Maryland, which is where it was used to call the Bat Cave. All that stuff went to Maryland. And recently, we finally, you know, now we have a house that has some room in it, like you're going to get. And I wanted to bring all that stuff back. So it was $50, but I left a bunch of games up there. And I realized, I said to my wife, there's one bookshelf of the games that I left up there. I said, if I got rid of, I have 1,000 games. If I got rid of 1,000 games, I kept these games, I'd be fine. You know, it's like, because just like you, I'll look at a lot of games just to play in one turn, you know, and GMT, of course, is very kind. They send me this stuff and I look at it, you know, and I try to, you know, if I like the game, I'll say something very positive about it. If I don't like the game, I say nothing. You know, that's how I don't dump on people. It's not my thing. It might, you know, look, why at this point in my life do I want to be making enemies, right? So, you know, but ultimately I play, you know, I play Empire of the Sun, I play Pacific War, you know, I play For the People. And after that, there's a bunch of other games that are in the mix that I like, you know, these days. But those are the ones I play, you know, and I'll play them anytime. Problem is, they're two-player games, and most people, every time I get together with my friends, there's always like 10 people, so we're always never playing those two-player games.
And you're not, Mark, you're not one of those guys that doesn't play their games, doesn't watch the films that they made, doesn't want to hear the songs that they made. You like, there's a lot of artists that do that. They don't want to hear their stuff. They don't want to, you know what I mean? And now, you playing your game. I saw you at WBC playing with this Asian man, I think called John.
Oh, you mean, yeah. John C.
John C. from the sunny Philippines.
No. You were playing. It was another guy. You were playing Empires of the Sun.
Well, I played with. I mean, oh, you mean WBC? I don't know. I could have been anybody. I mean, I played. The last person I think I played Empire of the Sun on, which was a while ago, you know, face to face, was Bruce Garrick at WBC long time ago.
Yeah, I asked him to come on tonight, but who knows?
Most of my Empire of the Sun play these days is either solitaire or I'm playing in a staff game on Consum World. And then, of course, I'm playing in a team, and I try not to, you know, I try to offer advice, but I try not to, you know, overwhelm. You know, I want people to have a good time. So
you don't do that with a pseudonym.
Tell Charles Latorre it'll be finished this year. I can't talk about the art department.
You can't talk about the what?
Fair enough. Can't talk about the art. So, well, actually, that's the question I wanted to ask you about. That actually is, did you get finished Rick Barber maps for that?
So this is a very sad story and a good story at the same time. So I forget the exact. I found out Rick died on a Saturday morning. I talked to Rick on it was an email, it was a text exchange, so it wasn't an actual, you know, phone call, but we were texting in real time.
Was he ill?
Huh?
Was
on
he
Thursday.
ill?
So Thursday, he and I are texting, and he said to me, I'm mailing the last maps to you tomorrow morning. I said, great. He died. I found out on Saturday he's dead, and I get the maps on Monday. So
yeah.
Now the problem is some of the things he did, I had to talk to him about, but I couldn't talk to him about it. So I'm kind of redoing. I have to redo the map a little bit because he changed the scale and it doesn't work. It's different scale than the ones that it over. The problem you have is that Chancellorsville and Wilderness are on the same, and Spotsylvania are pretty much the same place. Just move it, you know, just shift a few miles, you know, east, west, and south, and it's the same battlefield ultimately. So by changing the scale, I couldn't, you know, line them up on each other. So
you're not changing the artwork.
Well, the artwork is, remember, these are playtest maps. The artwork's going to get done by Mark Simonich. Actually, no, I take it back. Charlie Kibler's already done almost all the maps. No, Charlie Kibler's doing the maps.
I've seen a number of games that where Rick did like the layouts. I'm going to use comics terminology, I guess, here because I don't know any better. Where like Rick did the layouts and then somebody else did the finished work. There's some Labatt games like that, for example. and or Battles of the Age of Reason game, and they I mean got
well,
good results out of it.
Most of the artwork, if not the final artwork, for a Most Fearful.
Oh yeah,
place.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
By the way, good time. While I was watching the committee hearings this morning or this afternoon, I was playing the game in my basement, watching the hearings. You know, trying to get those Union troops up to McPherson's Ridge there.
It's one of my one of the first things I want to set up in the new place, actually. So
yeah, no, I got to tell you, the what is it called? Flying? Is it
Flying Pig?
Yeah, they did extraordinarily. The counters are fantastic. The map's fantastic. The rules are very well. I've had no problem with the rules or the layout or anything like that. It's a well-trotted system. You know, the blind forward system. If I have a complaint, which you can solve online, is the charts are. You know, I need a magnifying glass to read the charts, but they published online a blown-up version, you know, less things per page. And I use those, but I'm using a magnifying glass to see. But that's my only complaint. But they solved it by what you can get online. So
yeah, I thought they were pretty tiny too. But Gilbert Collins said he thinks that's just whining. So Gilbert's not wrong. If he can read it clearly, then good for him. Well, I could too, but it was small.
Yeah, I gotta look. Can I read it if I try to? I can squint at it. I can read it. But why am I doing that? I have this gigantic magnifying glass, and I just go, oh, there it is. So. I don't care.
I've got a color laser printer, so I can make it look like whatever I want.
Oh, I got a printer that'll print out a whole map in one piece now.
Ooh,
so
large format printer. Oh, that's fancy.
It is. I'm pretty sure I'm at my break even. I bought it last Christmas, and I figured out 15 map. Given that you have to go to like FedEx or some printing place to get it. 15 maps was my break even. I'm sort of like around a dozen now, so I'm already at break even on the thing.
There's a print on demand version of A Most Fearful Sacrifice that's like $22. Yeah, I mean, that's if you go get that printed at Staples or wherever, that's going to cost you a good chunk of the difference right there. But boy, that's an incredibly inexpensive price.
You know who Bill Alderman is?
Not sure I do.
He's got a thing called a big board.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Old friend of mine. Anyway, I get all my stuff from him. He has this really cool, it's paper, obviously, but it's got a high it feels like it's like textured paper. It's not like paper. It's like got some kind of like rag content to it.
Some kind of fancy paper.
Well, but the point is it's very sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's going to rip.
Yeah.
And it's slightly waterproof, although I never put any liquids near these things. So I like his stuff. And it's very
You're talking about the guy who expands his maps there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's getting the artwork directly from Mark Simonage. So it's the exact same artwork. And he's got the right, and his counters, he's got this great, really, his counters are really improved. They're like this composite. They're big, it's great.
What does he charge for a game?
And it's, pick the game. Like Empire of the Sun, I think a whole giant set of Empire of the Sun is probably about somewhere around 150.
That's it.
Like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not bad considering what games cost nowadays. So, I mean,
and by the way, and that's with the gigantic, 4 foot by 6 foot map. It's a little. I actually have two. I have the 4 foot by 6 foot map, but I also have on this table behind me sort of what he calls a conference. So if you go to a WBC, the size of those tables, it fits that. It'll fit that table this way. And it's bigger, so it's just easier to work with.
It's I've seen those productions and they're really nice.
Yeah, I seen them at WBC the only time I went there.
Yeah, somebody brought one to Winterfest a couple years ago.
We got drunk together at WBC, didn't we?
Oh God, I almost puked my brains out.
Oh, I was fine, but we drank a lot of scotch that night.
Oh man, you're a tough guy. I swear to God, I couldn't believe it. Jesus Christ, Mark, we drank a liter of goddamn scotch in 2 days.
Oh, it took 2 days?
Well, because we had to recover the next day.
I mean, you got to apply yourself a little more next time, Dan.
And Mark, you read me right away. That's the kind of guy you are. First of all, you said don't get Pacific War. It's not for you. You're right.
You bought it anyway, didn't you?
I bought it anyways.
I told everybody not to buy it, actually.
And you know, we were playing.
And I have a hunch with no inside information whatsoever. I have a hunch it's going to sell out before, say, mid 2023.
What? It isn't sold out already?
It won't last that long.
Yeah, there you go. So it's going to
I'm
sell out.
I have to tell you, well, you got to remember something. The original sold in the low 30,000 count, like 32, 33,000.
Unbelievable.
Well, yeah, but that's a long time ago. But so you can imagine that, you know, of that crowd, if 20% of them decide to revisit their youth, I'm sold out.
Oh yeah, I suppose that's true. I mean, I don't know what GMT's print run was, but it wasn't 30,000. So
no, it wasn't. It was closer to, like, I think it was probably something closer to like 7,500, and we're definitely over 6 at this point.
And do you ever think there's going to be a second edition of that, of the reprint?
You know,
it's a huge game.
You remember the James Bond movie, Never Say Never Again? That's my new line. I don't know. I'm hoping to be alive next week. You know, I don't really care.
So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it drew a lot of attention. I mean, there were, I think, well over 3,000 pre-orders alone.
Yes, it was. So, and it was obviously store sales and all that. It's fine. I mean, I got zero complaints. I mean,
a bunch of people bought it at Origins. I saw people carrying copies of it around at Origins.
I didn't even know it was for sale at Origins.
Yeah, Enterprise Games reps for GMT at Origins, so they were selling.
Okay, I didn't think GMT was going to be there. I think you told me.
Well, no, they use a local store and they send them product and all that. Yeah,
yeah, it's Enterprise Games out of Indianapolis. Don Pauly runs it. It's great. He's a great guy. They're great folks. They're like the official reps of GMT at Origins, and they have been for some years.
Well, you know, it doesn't, you know, so back in the day, you know, so this is now an old story, but I used to get paid. My take-home salary at SPI was $87.89 was my take-home pay from SPI back in when I first started.
What, weekly?
Yeah, weekly. Yes, definitely weekly. And most of I had between my rent, I lived in the city, so I didn't have a car or anything, but between my rent and trying not to starve to death, I pretty much, you know, I had to find my dating life was really hard to come by if the girl required you to buy them dinner. So it was hard times. But what I was able to do was the world used to have tons of these conventions, which they don't. Now they're all very big, and you know, but there used to be a billion local conventions all over the place, and they were frequent. And so SPI had a deal. So my side business was SPI would pay for the, you know, like the convention fee, and they would give me whatever games I wanted at half off, right? And I would then pack it. And this guy named Marty Goldberg and we kind of banded up, and you know, and we would. At least twice a month on a weekend, we'd go somewhere by car, or we'd rent a truck, or we had to sometimes fly, get the games sent. We'd sell all the games, and half the money goes to SPI for whatever we sold. We returned. It was like on consignment. They take back anything we didn't sell. We give them half the money, and the other half was ours. And anything left over after we paid all our bills, like the hotel and the travel and food or whatever, was ours to keep. And I used to be able to clear, you know, $200-300 a weekend twice a month.
No way.
That $600 was more than I made in my salary. You know, and remember, I'm splitting it with Marty, and sometimes it was another guy. So like, you know, I was always making $200-300 a weekend after all expenses, because I was really good at the logistics of, you know, taking the right games and, you know, and getting rid of them in the right prices. And so, you know, that's how I stayed alive. You know,
even after your gas, your plane, your hotel and all that, you cleared that much cash.
Let's be clear. Gasoline is, you know, 40 cents a gallon. So And the games were selling for, you know, $25-30 a game. So we're making like $15 a game, you know, clear. You know, there's no cost. We're dragging it around in my car. Or if we rented a truck rentals were not that much, you know, per day. You know, maybe a truck rental could be $25 a day. So so not that bad. And we were staying in, shitholes, I mean, I was young then, we were living, sometimes, a lot of these things were held at colleges, and, you could get a dorm room for like, $3 a night, conventions, so that was costing a lot of money. And we ate crap food, which didn't cost a lot. So, you could do okay.
I mean, I would think it back in the day, people had availability problems with a lot of games. If you wanted to pick up, say, SPI games, you didn't necessarily have a local store. It might depend on a convention to get those things.
Also, we would always bring the newest stuff. So we would often have it jump on the local stores because we're bringing like, Atlantic Wall just came out and like off the printer, and here they are. And they go, well, nobody else has them even. They hadn't even gone through the distribution chain usually. I will tell you a funny story. We go to Origins, and it was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and that was the summer where Next War, Atlantic Wall, and it was one other big one came out simultaneously. Oh, Atlantic Wall, Next War, and it was one other. We'll have to look at where they were, but there were three detergent box games, and I used to supplement in the art department, so I'm sitting there running the stat machine and making all I would be making the shots of the unit symbols and that kind of stuff, and then I would give them to the artists, and they would strip them onto the mechanical. So I used to do all the stat work when they were behind for Redmond, and so we get these games, and I ship them out, and I drive a truck from New York with this guy named Sid, who sadly passed away recently, and John Godier, who also sadly passed away recently. But anyway, the three of us get in this truck, and we drive from New York to Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is like, 10 hours, 11-hour drive. We get there, we unload the truck into the booth, and now there's only the three of us there, right? There's just three people, and the SPI crew is flying in, and they're not going to get there until around noon. So from the game thing opening up, let's say at 9 o'clock in the morning till noon, we sold out everything.
Serious.
We were throwing, I remember like the three games together was like $110 or something like that. And we were literally being paid in cash, and we were selling the game so quickly, we were just throwing the money in the general direction of the cash box. So there's a pile of cash on a chair. It's on a chair, and some of it's in the box, some of it's near the box, some of it's on the floor, that kind of crap. And when Redmond gets there, he goes, "Let me see the game." I said, "We sold out." He almost hit me. He said, "We were able to get some guy who had bought the games to come back and let Redmond see the finished product. He didn't even see the finished games." I even sold the boxes off the display. I mean, it was crazy. So we made so the guys at SPI, we had a whole crew out for the Ann Arbor thing. We had the famous SPI Avalon Hill Bull game, but after by noon on Friday, we were almost out of product in about 3 hours. And the rest of the time, everybody had off. They had cash in there. Howie found it, pre-distributed some of the cash, while working out the bills, and people had plenty of money in their pocket. It was a great convention, but those 3 hours, it was insanity. We called it North Drift after that.
What the hell happened? Why isn't it like that again? What was there no
different world? I mean, I was born in the black and white world of the 50s, and this is This is like 1970. Oh, this is the summer of 1978. That's when Next War came out, and there's just no competition from. There's really no competition from computers. There's no internet. There's no streaming at home. There's no iPads, no iPhones. It's a different world.
Not that many other publishers either.
There was like about 3 big publishers, and then there was like Flying Pig. There was just a million little guys who would have a game or two. All sorts of people out there. That's how I got my copy of Love and Tie at the first Origins. Was from Larry Groves sold it to me, and he had he had published them, got them printed wherever the hell he got them printed, and he had 20 copies of it and sold them at Origins. I got my copy from him.
Man, I mean, I remember, I don't know when it was, but Avalon Hill even had a con in Montreal. I actually went.
Huh.
I don't know what the hell was going on, just like all the time.
Well, I went. I remember the most interesting part of. So Dunnigan and I went to a convention in. It was Ontario. What's the capital? Ontario, right?
Ottawa.
Ottawa. We went to Ottawa, and it was a convention there. It's a small one, and I shipped it. And I literally we had just gotten Pacific War published, and I put the Ziploc bags in a big suitcase, and I get to the, I get off the plane, but I'm not trying to rip anybody off. I tell the Canadian Customs I got all these games I'm bringing in for a convention, and I had to pay this VAT tax or all this kind of crap, which I had never done before, and you should have seen the Canadian Customs guys are looking and going, "What the hell is this stuff?" They were like, I was there for like 90 minutes while they're trying to sort out if I was paying the right tax and that I had the right forms, and I categorized them properly, and was this military equipment for the military? Oh, it was a long, stupid conversation with Canadian Customs, but I finally got the games in, and we sold them all out in Canada. I think I brought back one.
Was it called Can Games? Can Games?
Well, Can Games. You mean Canada's? You mean? I don't know what Can Games mean. What does it mean? The company?
No, it's the con.
It might have been called that. I don't know. It was in Ottawa 100 years ago. This would have been like 1977. This is before next war. This is like 1976, 1977. I don't know.
Apparently, Can Games got started in
the bottom of some dark hotel. I remember the room being very dark. I just remember being like one of the darkest rooms I ever tried to play a game in. I needed like night goggles to see the counter.
And we have Hydro-Quebec. Whatever.
We were definitely not. There was no windows in the room, and I don't think the lights were that good. It was I just remember being dark when we were at the convention. That's all I remember.
What do
you see are the games that you're interested in coming out in the future that you're excited about?
Well, honestly, the big one was Pacific War. My that huge tsunami of stuff that hit me in like February or whenever it was. That had a whole bunch of my most anticipated things. Did you buy,
Artie?
Just one. They were expensive too. I bought $500 worth of games. It was that and 4 or 5 other things. So I could only afford one at that point. I'm more looking forward to things that I want to get to a table than things that are coming out necessarily. But I'm super pumped about Great Battles of Julius Caesar, and I had to cancel it because it was going to charge next week, or actually not even next week, this week. And I don't know what.
Good. I gotta say, it looks good.
Looks great.
We sorted out. Unfortunately, Berg, passed away in what do you call it? Intestate? Is that the word when you don't have a will? And he had his ex. I thought he divorced his wife, but apparently he had not actually divorced his wife.
He had no will.
No.
That's what intestate means, correct. Yeah, it was just a sad. So I think we finally sorted out, who's who in that zoo. So now now Caesar's. And I am working. Oh, somebody asked a question. Am I working on anybody else's games that
Chad Jensen.
Yeah. No, not Chad. I'm working on Berg's Thunderbolt.
Oh, I'm super looking forward to that. I got to tell you, I've been waiting for that.
What is that game? I don't know it. What is it?
So Berg did, he did Carthage and he did the Roman one, and this is the third. Now the series, everybody's going, "Well, are you going to do this one and that?" I said, "Let me tell you something. I'm going to do this one game." The reason I'm doing it is that Berg finished the map. Otherwise, I wasn't going to do it. But Berg did the Spanish map near the very end of his life. And so we have that map, and I think Simonich is actually rendering it as we speak. And Alan Ray is my new, GBOH partner. We brought him up from the ranks now. So I'm co-designing it with Alan Ray, great guy, Canadian, by the way, just to be clear. And that's kind of becoming onto my horizon with. I'm doing this. I'm kind of doing the sequel to Simonich's Julius Caesar. It's Rome, the Civil War I'm doing. In fact, it's right behind me over there.
Jesus,
that's one of my favorite game series. When I dumped virtually all of my war games back in the late 90s, I guess it was, or early 2000s, those 2 games, Rise of the Roman Republic and Carthage, were games that stayed. I never got rid of those. I still have them. They are pretty awesome games. So I've been looking forward to Thunderbolt forever.
The difficulty with operational ancients games, we went to about intelligent things, right, is effectively there's like at most 3 mobile forces. There's the main army, there's some secondary army, there's some other guy somewhere else, right? And so you maneuver the hell around with these three pieces basically until they have a battle, and you hopefully get the battle on your own terms. And somebody wins the battle. Whoever wins the battle is kind of on his way to winning the game. So sometimes the game could be, depending how you work it out, it could be like a one die roll game unless you get some other factors into it. So it's interesting to me, how like I said, Ancient's operational games can be very challenging to be interesting as a two-player experience. Even solitaire, they're fine, but as a two-player experience, they can have their challenges.
Looking forward to the next GTS title too, which is now on pre-orders. The Greatest Day Utah Beach. That ought to be fun. I've talked to some of the play testers of that. They're very excited about it. So, and I've played the system, and I like the system a lot. So
cool. That's good.
That's MMP, right? You're talking about?
That's MMP, yeah.
Yeah. What are you playing these days, Dan? Or you're just playing music?
What am I playing? I can't even play with myself.
I thought you were playing the Ram Lambo games.
No, I want to get those goddamn games. I'm a little bit short. Never do this to a man. I'm a little bit short for cash these days, so I wanted to do that. But I want to do a Mark Herman bloody game. Jesus Christ!
Mark showed you Ribbit.
You're funny. You're funny, eh?
Hey, send me your address. I got a whole bunch of. I got South Pacific. I got Burma. I got a whole bunch of things.
Do you know what postage is going to cost you? Come on.
I ship through Pirate Ship to Canada now, and it actually is not nearly as bad as shipping through the.
It's going to be. I'm going to put down. What is this? It's a wedding present. That's what I'm telling.
Hey, Mark. By the way, before I said, Christ, don't you let up. And I know you're. Is hyper a good word? And I meant to say hyper in a good way. Like, you got energy. Let's go. But don't you have other bloody hobbies other than designing goddamn games?
You know what? I have found, first of all, I'm going to be 68 this year. And, pretty much between being a grandfather, which I got all these pregnant girls delivering babies now again. I got a lovely wife. And
she's Italian, by the way.
Huh?
Italian wife.
She's definitely Italian. Yeah. I asked her if she wanted to do a walk-on. She gave me this glare, like, not only that a stupid question, it wasn't even a question. But no, I'm to the point now where I'm just happy to have easy days and work on games and play games and watch the destruction of the United States. That's kind of what I'm doing.
Live on television.
Oh my! I gotta tell you something. One of the worst days of my life. I watched that, January 6th in real time, and I was. In fact, I told you about this guy Gary Gonzalez. So Gons calls me up and goes, "What the f is going on here?" I go, I don't know what's happening. This is impossible.
Biggest thing that ever happened in the States.
Oh, I think it's the biggest thing that happened in U.S. history since the Civil War. I mean,
I'm watching it too. They had the guy from the spokesperson for the something boys.
Yeah, the Oath Keeper.
The Oath Keeper. I mean, holy moly, man! What he was saying, I was flipping out. And I'm Canadian. I don't give a shit. But anyways.
Well, I got to tell you something. As a historian, my kids are always going, "Why do you watch all the news?" Because I'm watching history.
Absolutely.
Unfold right in front of my eyes. I mean,
absolutely.
It's like the fall of Rome in fast and accelerated mode here. But anyway, I'm hopeful it will come. One thing I have to say, I have faith is, I'm sorry, Ron. I'm sorry your birthday's ruined, but
that's funny.
But I'll tell you, it is my, I love my country, and I believe that when things tip too far, the guys in the middle, which is me, go, "What the f?" and it starts to yank it back. And I believe actually this Roe v. Wade thing is the thing that's going to bring it back. It's not going to be the 1/6 insurrection. It's going to be, you just do not piss off half the United States at one time. It's just not a good idea.
I know, man.
I mean, you tell any woman that I've ever known or dated or spoken to, and said, "Oh, by the way, congratulations being a second-class citizen." That is not going. That's not going to sit well. I'm voting with the girls. I'm good with it. I think the girls are going to save us in the end. I'm hopeful.
Well, look, Mark. You said you were going to be on for half an hour. You stayed on for an hour.
I'm good. I'm having a good time. If you want me to go, I'll go. I mean, if you want me to get
the thing is I want to go, for God's sakes. I got a life too. I'm not like you.
He's got all these other hobbies.
God damn it. I mean, Jesus.
Fine. I'm good. I got a wife in the next room who's probably happy I'm not in there right now.
Oh, by the way, what did you have for supper tonight?
What?
What did you have for supper tonight?
So the thing I've been trying to do these days, Thomas Jefferson had an eating philosophy, which I've been trying to take on, which is helping, is he believed that you shouldn't have any large, heavy food after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I have big lunches and I have light dinners and I drink, so it's all good.
I mean, that seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, I'm drinking a Balvenie 12. I know, Artie, you liked it.
Yeah, yes, I've everything from Balvenie is excellent that I've ever had.
Well, look, I hate to be the rag or the
party pooper.
The party pooper, but the show's over, okay? Mark, hold on.
Hey, Artie, I look forward to hearing your. I mean, send it to me on the side if you want. I'd just be really interested what you guys who are actually playing the game think about the game Pacific War. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm planning on having an actual review of it. Actually, once we are done with the campaign, I don't do a lot of reviews, right? Because you start saying, I mean, I get people accusing me of doing reviews already for I unboxed this thing. It was an unboxing, man. It took 3 minutes. I did not give you a review of this product.
Oh, hold on. What did you put up today?
So give me a heads up if I need to stay away from sharp objects. Give me a heads up, okay?
I will do that. I will absolutely do that.
Artie, what did you put up today? Something about Snap YouTube or something?
The YouTube short. I was just playing around with the YouTube Shorts thing.
Christ, I'll never get that time back. Mark, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
It's always a joy.
Guys. I'm going to cut out. Let you guys finish up the show together without me. Be well.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Wow. Okay, Artie. It's over. Party's over. What the hell is that, party pooper?
Party pooper.
Anyways, people, thank you very much. So glad to have Mark on. So glad to have Artie on. And I'm so glad. Who did that?
So glad. Oh, jeez.
Come on.
That's the Who.
No, right? It's Cream.
Cream. Yeah, you're right.
Artie, have a good one.
Good night.